This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne, and you know this is an independent England supporters podcast that looks at our national football team, England. So those Nations League games scheduled for September away to Iceland and Denmark still tantalising us. Although, what with the very recent government guidance, in my own opinion, the chances of us being able to go anywhere near them are getting slimmer by the day. And now, even with the sporting events due to be used as test pilots cancelled, be it cricket, snooker, horse racing, even that Wales friendly in October, I can't see us being granted access, even in a limited capacity. Of course, if it is deemed safe, then I am happy to be proved wrong. But the longer this goes on for, doesn't inspire me with confidence. But we still all need to remain vigilant at all times. Coming up, we'll be speaking with another England fan who tells us about his first away game, which could be described as a baptism of fire. And I hope you enjoyed the last one, where we spoke with Alfie Wilson about his first game back in 2012 at the European Championships in Ukraine. As always, if you want to get involved, please drop me a note. I'll give it all out at the end of this episode. And what else has been going on? Obviously, the domestic season has concluded, as it traditionally should, with the FA Cup final. Congratulations if your team won something, gained promotion or managed to stay up, and commiserations if you've experienced relegation. And I feel for you if you're a Wigan or Sheffield Wednesday fan, or a Newcastle United fan. Talk about having a carrot dangled in front of you. Owners of football clubs, eh? And let's not forget Bury. Whilst we think we've had a bad season, those supporters have had nothing all season. And then we have this mini European Champions League, Europa League tournament thingy. If I'm honest, I've not given it too much attention, but I'm guessing as long as UEFA get their money's worth, and I'm sure they'll be happy. But on the plus side, we're only about 4 to 6 weeks away until it all starts again. If it all goes to plan. Got a little sidetrack there. As this is the Three Lions podcast, what's been going on England-wise? Well, you may have seen this one recently. Leighton Baines retired from football at the age of 35. Former Everton and Wigan left-back, played 30 times for England, scoring just the once in a World Cup qualifier away against Moldova in 2012, albeit with a wicked deflection.
Baines takes it, it's deflected, and in.
Baines came through the system representing the under-21s and became England's player number 1,162. And he was in Roy Hodgson's squads for both Euro 2012 and the Brazil World Cup of 2014. And I guess with regards to England, he was fortunate that he was in form just as Ashley Cole was injured and then subsequently retired. I always thought he was a fairly stable player, reliable. He was often on the score sheet for Everton, wasn't he? Liked a penalty or a free kick. And then news out of the Lionesses camp recently was that they have decided not to participate in the next She Believes Cup, which is held annually in America. And they've been ever present since it began back in 2016 and of course won it in 2019. But the FA gave the reasons based on existing uncertainties around the future trend of the COVID-19 pandemic, technical factors and travel logistics during a tight international window were also considered when making this decision. And the Lionesses, I believe, were the last England national team to play a game before the whole lockdown began, participating in that last She Believes Cup, losing to Spain on the 11th of March. In fact, One of the podcast episodes I put out at the time, I remember saying that there was a lot of travelling involved for a tournament that is played over the best part of 7-8 days. And I think withdrawing from the She Believes is no bad thing, to be honest. When there are various European tournaments that the women can participate in, be it the Algarve Cup, the Cyprus Cup, or there is also the Turkish Women's Cup. And they're all held generally at similar times in late February or early March. And at the moment too, whilst we know the senior men have fixtures in the pipeline, nothing has been announced for the Lionesses. And we're also still none the wiser as to who will succeed Phil Neville as the next Lionesses manager. Although I did see a recent article on the BBC where apparently the FA had received 142 applications to be the next manager, which I find quite astonishing. Be interesting how many serious contenders they whittle that one down to going forwards. And one final thing on the Lionesses. Podcast regular Dom Smith has written a piece on Farrell Williams, England's most capped player. It's a real insight into what formed her as a player. You can head to englandfootball.org to have a read of it there. Right, time to go back in time and speak with an England fan about their first England away game and the memories and the experiences they had. We're talking with Daniel Musson this time, and we're going back 22 years for this one. I'd like to welcome to the Three Lions podcast. We're back. We're doing another one of our Your First Away Games series, which seems to be very popular at the moment. I'd like to welcome to the podcast Daniel Musson. Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Russell. How you doing?
Very good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, very well. Yeah, enjoying a bit of rare sunshine, which we've not had for a few days. But
make the most of it.
Exactly.
Now, as I say, we're talking your first England away game. I remember this one very well. I didn't go, but I remember where I was, and I'll mention that in a moment. But it was game number 747 for England. Go on, do you want to tell us what your first England away game was?
Yeah, my first England away game was against Tunisia at the World Cup 1998, which was the opening game for England at the tournament. Taking a step back from that, my personal sort of England experience, so to speak, is that the first World Cup I remember was probably 82 to an extent. I certainly remember 86 and 90. Obviously 94 was missed. Euro 96 sort of fueled my fire when it came to England, and I didn't actually get to any games at Euro 96, but that really sort of gave me a passion to think, God, how good does that look? It was only just down the road from where I lived at the time, but I nearly went to the Spain game, I think it was, but that didn't happen for various reasons. And my first game was the Tunisia game in Marseille, World Cup 1998. So yeah, it was an experience which no one ever forgets their first club game or their first England game. But yeah, from a supporter point of view, it was an eye opener, shall we say. It was things were a little bit different to how they are nowadays, and it was a good experience looking back. At the time, there was moments of it that were a little bit I'm not afraid to say scary. In 1998? I was sort of 21. I'd done a little bit of travelling through my late teens with family on holidays and stuff, but I'd never experienced anything like this. So from looking ahead to the game, I joined the supporters club. I think it would have been sort of after Euro 96. I forget how the membership scheme rolled then. Obviously, it's 2 years now. I think it might have been something similar. But anyway, I joined as a member, and I've dug out my application form for tickets, which in those days was in paper format.
Oh, right.
So you literally had a letter that came through the post, and on the back of the letter, it was sort of a newsletter type scenario, and on the back was a pink form, I think it was, and on that form you just basically tick the games that you want. You sent it off in the post, and then you found out by getting a return letter. So I applied for the 3 group games looking back and thought hopefully I'll get tickets for 1, maybe 2 of those. As it turned out, I think I actually got the ticket via a second ballot, which obviously we're familiar with nowadays. And I got a Cat 1 ticket for the game in Marseille, and it cost me £39 plus £4 in postage. So yeah, that was the start of the trip experience. And once I went with a good friend of mine, Matthew, who I went to school with. Once we got confirmation that we had tickets, we then went about looking at the travel options and sort of took it from there.
Excellent. I mean, £4 for postage. That seems like they stitched you up there.
Yeah, I think Glenn Hoddle must have driven around in his Rolls Royce and delivered it in those. Yeah, it was £4. That was expensive. Looking back, yeah, it's one of those things where sort of money sort of paled into insignificance, and sort of looking back, £39 in those days was quite a lot of money. So I think I was probably watching club football and sort of looking back paying sort of certainly less than a tenner to watch football probably in those days. So yeah, it was quite expensive, but yeah, it was going to be my first England game. It was at a World Cup. I was really like, this is going to be great. So we then went on to look at our travel options. I think in those days we didn't consider flying because it was just expensive, and we were both in our sort of early 20s and sort of didn't have what was probably several £100s to get down to Marseille. So the Euro tunnel was quite a new thing in those days. So we looked at that option, and that was the one we decided to go with. Right. The game was on a Monday. You'll probably come on to this in a second, but you obviously recall the game was on a Monday afternoon. It was I think a 1:30 kickoff in England and a 2:30 kickoff in France. So we actually on the Monday, like I say, we left Hitchin at 4:30 a.m. on the Saturday morning and made our way down to Waterloo without the bucket of Vindaloo. So we got on the 6. We've got my ticket here. We got on the 6:53 a.m. from Waterloo. We changed in Lille and we arrived in Marseille around about 5 o'clock on the Saturday evening. So we decided to get there a couple of days before to take in the experience, and obviously we'd seen the pictures and read up a bit about Marseille. Looked quite a nice city. Obviously, Chris Waddle had been there, so it was a club that was sort of familiar to us, and thought, yeah, it'd be good to spend a couple of days, see the city. The port looked great, and so we got there on a Saturday evening and decided to have a gentle Saturday evening. I can't recall exactly what we did, but I think it probably involved having something to eat and maybe a drink or two, and then sort of getting to bed quite early, obviously, after having a full day's travelling. And sort of we were looking forward to the Sunday and sort of start to build up to the game on the Monday.
Yeah, because I imagine you felt like I did. It was the first World Cup game for England and England supporters in 8 years. I mean, Italia 90 was obviously 8 years previous, and this World Cup had come round, and I remember feeling, wow, I'm ready for this. I was at an age where I could get to the pub, and I still to this day remember what pub I drank in. I remember the friends I was with, and bizarrely, I remember as well what my friends were doing after the game. These little strange memories that come with this game. But it was the World Cup, and the World Cup, England were back in it. But yeah, I remember where I was. So you got there on that Saturday, and you were up and ready to go on the Sunday. Did you expect what was coming your way?
No, not at all. I'd seen the pictures. It looked like a nice port city with lots of bars and restaurants, etc. And what we experienced was something totally different, obviously. So that the Sunday started, I think the hotel we stayed in wasn't great. It was very cheap, and I don't think there was any breakfast. I think we probably went out, grabbed something to eat, and sort of made our way down to the port. We were staying by the station, and basically we sort of meandered down to the port area, and after breakfast we arrived in the port, I'm guessing probably some point around about midday. These were the days when Melinda Messenger was in the news, and Tango, the drink was... So basically what we encountered in this beautiful port city was a open top double-decker bus with Melinda Messenger on top, throwing out hats and scarves, and it was a real party carnival atmosphere. We were having a few beers in this port, and it was it was like, this is great, this is really, sun was beating down, so this is brilliant. Then it took a turn for the worse. My personal memory of what happened was that an England fan took a Tunisian flag, which was basically attached to the back of a car, which obviously caused some aggravation with the occupants of the car. And there was obviously Tunisians in the port as well, which until then, it was all very good. And there was no it was fine. There was no issues whatsoever. But that sort of triggered a sequence of events. And what happened after that is the English fan basically set fire to the Tunisian flag, and it just sort of escalated from there. I've obviously done a lot of England aways in the last sort of 20, 25 years, whatever it is, but I didn't have the wits about me that I've got now when it comes to watching England abroad. And as you probably, your good self knows, you tend to get a feeling for when something's going to happen like this. You tend to basically disappear, and you go round the corner, up the street, etc., etc. But we sort of thought, oh no, that's not very good, and sort of, but we didn't really realise. But anyway, out of nowhere, loads of riot police appeared. I don't think we'd seen a policeman all morning. All of a sudden, loads of riot police appeared, and it just escalated from there. Bottles start being thrown, etc., etc. Just like, oh, this isn't good. So we thought we'll find somewhere where we could sort of get away from it. It was sort of lunchtime-ish. So we ended up in a McDonald's thinking, it'll be all right in here. There was families, there was kids, etc. Yeah. So we're sitting in this McDonald's in the port. Then literally, we hadn't even ordered any food. And before we knew it, a policeman came in there and threw tear gas and basically cleared the restaurant.
Inside McDonald's?
Yeah, no word of a lie. He came in, I vividly remember it, standing in the queue. The doors sort of crashed open. I looked over my left shoulder, turned around, and a policeman came in there, and a tear gas canister went off.
The police don't help themselves sometimes, do they?
It was like kids, families, etc. It was an absolute disgrace. So we soon vacated there, and that's the only experience I've ever had of tasting tear gas, and it wasn't great. Tears, watering eyes, coughing, etc., etc. So we thought we're gonna have to move a lot further. So we ended up walking probably only 200 or 300 yards down a back street. We found this bar. This bar had a few England fans in. So we thought, yeah, let's go in here. It's a bit off the beaten track. It should be okay. So we ended up going into this bar. Then within a few minutes, the bar owner said to us, he said, obviously in broken English, he said to us, look, you can stay in this bar. You can be my friends, but we have to shut. And we're sort of, what do you mean shut? He goes, well, I will put the shutters down at the front of the bar so it looks as though it is closed, but you have to stay in here and we cannot open until everything is okay. Being 21 years of age, you're thinking, my word, it's just basically asked us to stay for a lock-in.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know, 20 or 30 England fans in this bar. So we basically stayed in this bar from sort of mid-afternoon through till probably sort of, I'm guessing 9, 10 o'clock in the evening.
Wow.
And it was quite a surreal experience. So that was sort of the afternoon and the evening. Then we'd obviously had a ridiculous amount to drink, but we were still sort of okay. So we thought, let's go back to the hotel. This is Sunday, it's match day tomorrow. We want to wake up with a relatively clear head. It was obviously the 2:30 kickoff. So I thought, yeah, it's getting around 10 o'clock-ish, so we'll make our way back to the hotel. So we made our way back to the port, then tried to navigate our way back to our hotel. We didn't have a clue where our hotel was, apart from it was near the station. So we started walking up this street, which sort of led up a hill, and we recall the station sort of being at the top of the hill. Then the streets were just littered with little gangs of basically sort of North Africans, Algerians, Tunisians, whatever, just roaming around. And there was various reports of things going on, and English fans are coming up to us saying, oh, don't go up there, there's lads with knives, and oh, someone's been stabbed down there. But anyway, so these English fans said, honestly, guys, don't go up there. there's a lot going on. You're better off coming into a hotel. So we ended up going into this hotel, which we weren't staying at, and probably stayed in there for another 2 or 3 hours. By this time, obviously, we were getting sort of midnight, 1 o'clock. So I don't recall exactly, but we obviously made our way back to a hotel. That basically finished Sunday, and Monday was match day. Looking back, the thing that sort of startled me a bit was obviously my parents, family, girlfriend at the time were obviously seeing the news, and obviously we didn't know what was being reported in going back 20 odd years, but obviously it was quite big. Obviously you're back in England, so you would have seen sort of the headlines, the news and what have you. And it was big news, and I hadn't reported back and sort of said anything to family or friends, or didn't think to phone, and just thought, oh yeah, I guess we probably thought it was the norm. This is what always happens, because England hadn't sort of, like you say, been in a World Cup since 1990, which was sort of the back end, I guess, of the sort of the real hooligan era. We're thinking, oh, maybe this is just normal. So yeah, I had mixed emotions. Of that Sunday, part of it I really enjoyed up until sort of lunchtime-ish, and it was a bit of a novelty. But then, as the day went on, I'm thinking, I don't really like this. This isn't me. I'm not. I'm a football fan who loves watching football and enjoys the banter with obviously opposition fans and countries and what have you. But it was really, it was sort of looking back, you sort of think, my word, that was a bit of a shock.
I mean, were they like? Did you encounter any Tunisians? Were they friendly?
The only real recollection I've got of the Tunisians was on that Sunday before the trouble started. Like you find at World Cups, there was lots of supporters of Tunisia around. They had their flags draped around their shoulders, and they were having their sort of sing-songs and stuff. There was no sort of issues in terms of confrontation between the two sets of supporters. And I think looking back, what was reported and what people sort of say was that it wasn't really the Tunisians. It was more so sort of the people that had come into Marseille from sort of North Africa, looking for trouble. There was pickpocketing going on and all sorts. And it was, so it didn't reflect well on either sets of supporters. But I think looking back, it was more so sort of local stroke North Africans that had sort of instigated a lot of the trouble. Then, as we all know, the press in the UK had a field day, sort of England should be kicked out of the World Cup and this is a disgrace, and the Prime Minister should be clamping down on this. They shouldn't let anyone leave the country to watch this tournament, etc., etc. So it was interesting.
So you got yourself a night's sleep eventually, and the trouble didn't finish there. It carried on to match day, didn't it? Or from what I read, and on the beach, was it?
Yeah. So basically, on the match day, the game obviously was in mid-afternoon. So from memory, we sort of made our way up to the stadium quite early, because obviously we hadn't been there before, and we didn't want to sort of miss kickoff or anything. So we got there quite early. I'm guessing sort of an hour or two before kickoff. Made our way into the stadium. So that was obviously what we did, as we had tickets. Looking back and what was reported and what we heard the following that evening was that the French had thought it'd be a great idea to set up a massive screen on the beach where everyone who hasn't got a ticket can watch the game.
Which is what would happen nowadays, really, wouldn't it? With the fan zones.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense. But I think in those days, it was literally, right, we'll set a screen up, right, there it is, and then anyone can watch it. There's no control in terms of like accessing. It wasn't a fan zone. Well, it was a fan zone, but it wasn't, because obviously we've been to fan zones in obviously Germany, Russia, etc. But there was, it was just basically sounds as though it was sort of a full-on riot. I've still got the newspaper cuttings of people throwing bottles and people with bloodied faces and all sorts going on. So it really sort of, that trouble lasted a good couple of days. Looking back, it's a bit embarrassing, because that clearly there's photos of England fans throwing bottles and chairs and all sorts, and it never looks good, and it didn't look good at all then.
Yeah. Well, from what I can gather, there was no trouble inside the stadium, was there? So it all went off quite well in the ground. Yeah,
it was the ground. The Stade de Velodrome. The ground it's been developed since. I didn't go back in 2016, as you can probably appreciate. I'd seen enough of Marseille and watched a game of football at that stadium, so I didn't need to go back. So I missed that deliberately. But the ground was a massive open bowl, like really. It was a really, really hot day, but in the ground itself, there was no trouble. There was a small, wasn't that small actually. There was a fair few Tunisians in there, and obviously a lot of English had gone over and sort of pretty much taken over the majority of the ground, apart from sort of the Tunisian end behind one of the goals. But yeah, the ground was fine. The atmosphere was great. Fans were sort of mixing fairly well throughout the stadium. So yeah, inside the ground it was fine, and it was sort of the experience I was hoping I was going to have, which we did have. But yeah, the game itself was, I guess looking back, it's your perfect opener to a World Cup from a country point of view. You win, you keep a clean sheet. Shearer scored. I think it was Scholes who got the other goal.
That's right towards the end.
Yeah, and I think Owen might have come on towards the end.
Yes, he did. He came on as a substitute for Teddy Sheringham. About 5 minutes to go. Yeah.
So it sort of ticked all the boxes. Sort of you bloodied your new youngster, and it was just all this is good. And I thought it was it's perfect in terms of the game, the result, and everything. So that was really, really, really good. Then looking ahead, you obviously hope that we would progress, etc. But sort of looking back at the game itself, it was ideal. It was really good.
I did go to Marseille in 2016, and Fortunately, I missed all the trouble then.
Yeah.
And I walked into that ground, the Velodrome, sort of remembering back to 98, remembering that it was a big open bowl, and the sun was beating down. I mean, the game against Russia in 2016 in the Euros was an evening game.
Yeah.
But it's got a large roof all around, but I found it was one of the best grounds I've been into for atmosphere, and I stood behind the goal on that game. Whereabouts were you in the ground?
So we had Cat 1 tickets, so we were along the side, sort of opposite the tunnel side. So the tunnel side, where I presume where the changing rooms are, etc. At that stage was the only of the four sides that had a roof.
I see.
Opposite there, and I do recall actually Viv Anderson was a few seats in front of us, which I was like, wow, there's Viv Anderson. That was I was like, God, that's amazing, it's Viv Anderson. But it was the seats were great, but the atmosphere sort of was very impressive because like I say, there was no roof on three sides of the ground, so to create an atmosphere in a stadium without a roof on the majority of it was impressive. But I do recall the atmosphere was really, really good. And obviously you experienced it in 2016. I guess you had a similar, probably a better atmosphere than we had in 98.
Well, it was up until the full time result, but
that's part of the course. You expect that.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there it was Shearer and Scholes that scored, but do you remember that Sheringham had an effort that was, I think he was about 25 yards back, where he just turned, hit the volley, and hit the bar.
Right. No, I don't recall that.
Great effort, that one. And I think Shearer scored in the first half with I think it was probably a Shearer header, and then Scholes got his goal towards the end of the game, and he'd called in ahead of Gaza, I think, wasn't he, when Hoddle dismissed Gaza back home and brought in Scholes.
Yeah, that was sort of because of obviously the impact that Gaza had on Euro 96. It was sort of you would never have guessed that he wouldn't even make the squad in 98, but the issue with Gaza wasn't his footballing ability. It was obviously the other things in his life that obviously caused his downfall, so to speak. But Scholes was I'm looking at a newspaper cutting, and Paul Scholes, man of the match, 9 out of 10, might have had a hat trick. His goal was worth waiting for. Could prove to be the star of the finals.
Ooh.
So that was that obviously didn't materialise. But
so from there, Marseille and the Tunisia game, did you go and see any more games? Or did you come straight back home trouble free?
Yeah, we the Monday evening I don't recall doing a lot at all, to be totally honest. But yeah, we came back. We got the train back on the Tuesday. I didn't have any plans to go back out, and I recall when we exited the competition, I was away on holiday at the time. So yeah, I didn't obviously. Yeah, in answer to that question, that was the end of my World Cup 1998. It's it was we got. It was Argentina that year, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. Unfortunately.
So, yeah, I recall that quite vividly as well. So I was in a bar in Fuerteventura, sitting next to a German man for the whole of the game. And he kept saying to me, "You will win, you will win." I was like, "No, we won't. No, we won't." Got to penalties, and he said, "I promise you, you will win penalties. You won at Euro 96 penalties versus Spain. You are now good at penalties." I was like, yeah. So I was watching the penalties. He was literally sitting next to me. I turned around. I can't remember who missed. Was it Ince or Batty? He missed the last one. But anyway, I turned around after we'd been knocked out. He'd gone. Never to be seen again. I thought he might have stayed to shake my hand and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." But yeah, it was quite a short-lived World Cup, I guess, that with just the 3 group games and the round of 16 defeats to the Argies. But
yeah, your England journey, what a start, and has continued from there.
Yeah, I've sort of I'm one of these people that sort of go. It's been I guess you could probably call it a bit stop-start, because I didn't do 2002. Well, I guess I say stop-start. I've always, until quite recently, I've always gone on the basis of going to the later stages. Yep. So I think Japan and South Korea, I probably applied for sort of quarter semi-final. Then likewise, 2006, obviously been in Germany, I went to all of those games. 2010, again, I applied for later stages, didn't materialise. 14, I did the Sao Paulo game where we played Uruguay. And then 2018, I did, I think, 5 of the, what did we play? Was it 6 or 7 in Russia? But yeah, I did 5 of those.
Oh, wow.
I missed the first one and didn't do the third and fourth playoff, but I did the other 5, I think it was. So yeah, so I've sort of had some really, really good experiences. Sort of the most memorable one from my point of view was obviously the 5-1 in Munich. Guessing that was my second away game. So that was a good one as well. But yeah, I just really enjoy 2 or 3 trips ideally each year, going to different cities, different countries, etc., and ideally winning and experiencing some good times with some good friends and stuff. So yeah, it's really, I really do enjoy it.
I know exactly how you feel. Great memories there, but I mean, and you told us about the previous World Cups and tournaments you've been to there, but looking ahead, unfortunately, it's not going to be this year. But 2021, the Euros. What are your thoughts on that? Where do we stand there?
Yeah, I think looking back at 18 and sort of I looked at the team, the squad the other day, and I think you look at it, and apart from Kane and Sterling, in my opinion, no other player you can really put anywhere near world class. So I think off the back of that and how well we did, I think it comes down to the fact that it is really a team game, and we had the golden generation, and it didn't work. So I think Southgate has got it right in terms of it's a team game, and he plays people on merit. But I think the year delay is going to go in our favour, because Kane's now going to be, well, you'd like to think will be fit. Rashford will be fit. And then you sort of add in what's coming through in terms of Sancho, Foden, Gomez, Trent, who's the other one that's got Hudson-Odoi, I think it is, who's recently got injured and coming back. So I think that the future looks quite bright, and I think with Southgate we've currently got the right man, and hopefully 2021 and 2022 could be good years for England, and hopefully when we look back in a year's time or just over a year's time, that this break in football might have done us a favour.
Well, yeah, let's hope so. I think everyone's on the positivity side of things, and I think you're right with regards to the players getting back to fitness. It's just getting that sort of match fitness as well, and getting England games up and running. Hopefully we can see those, a few of those before the tournament next year, and a few more nice little away days.
Yeah, here.
Lovely. Daniel, thank you very much for your time.
No worries at all. Thank you, Russell.
Thank you to Daniel there. Some great memories from an interesting tournament. And as I said previously, it's always great to hear from you, especially some of those older games. And if you want to share those memories, please do get in touch, and you can do that in the usual way. Email me, threelinespodcast@gmail.com, or you can do so via Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. Just search 3 Lines Podcast. Now, I mentioned Dom Smith at the beginning of the show and his website englandfootball.org, and I thought it's only fair to take a quick look around the England blogging scene. There's a couple of new ones that have crept in recently, and I thought I'd take a quick look at what's been said recently. And then you can go and have a perusal yourself at your own leisure. And of course, there is both England Football Online and EnglandStats.com, of which I have to say I regularly use both when doing my research. Glenn and Chris at England Football Online have got lots of additional info other than the match results. You can take a look at all the England shirts worn over the years. Plus, they've got the under-19s, under-20s and under-21 info too. Plus, all the Lionesses results that I helped them with. And they can all be found there. Davey at England Stats, again, has all the results, and his latest update has competition tables on all World Cup and Euro qualifying tournaments, plus some minor ones too. Jonathan Thierby at footballengland.blog. It doesn't look like it's been updated for a while, but took a look at the possibles for Gareth's European Championship squad in his last post. Matt Asprey, we've spoken to him before. He's over at mattaspreysport.wordpress.com. And his latest piece looks at Gareth Southgate and how Euro 2021 may pan out. But also, if you like your cricket and boxing, there's also some great write-ups on that too. Now, a couple of new blogs that I've come across include 3lions.net, as written by Aidan Smith, who's written a couple of recent posts about Phil Neville. There's been one about ITV's Clive Tildesley, and most recently an article about players who must move to be named in England's Euro squad. It's an interesting, thought-provoking read. Although one name he doesn't mention is Dortmund's Jadon Sancho, whom, if you believe what you read, and by the time this podcast is released, he is on the verge of joining Manchester United. You may well have made it by now. In excess of 100 million. But it has to be said, he doesn't really need to move to assure himself of a place in next year's squad. And finally, if blogging on YouTube is your thing, then take a look at It's Coming Home TV, the brainchild of England fan Sam Goldsworthy, who's joined by 3 fellow England fans, Callum, Michael and Matt, to discuss all things England, and most recently talking about the position of goalkeeper at next year's Euros. I'll try and put a link to all of them on the Twitter or Facebook. And I guess at some stage I'll try and catch up with all of them, speak to them on the podcast, see how they're all doing. Right, I think that's me done. Thanks as always for listening. Always appreciate it. Thanks for the comments you make. Please keep them coming. And if you happen to be passing the likes of iTunes, please feel free to leave a review. So until the next time, take care, stay safe, look after yourself, stay subscribed too, and wear that mask. Cheers.